So we're going to start here with the actual instances of what happened between these corrections officers and these inmates. And it's pretty graphic in there, and there are several examples, and there is recent, as you see here, July 2020, September 2019, February 2020. There's just so many disgusting acts here that are just swept under the rug. And as you see, they do have a tendency to just let officers go after several reports. And you'll see the lengths these officers go to enforce their power over these inmates. And it's a ride, so just hold on. We're going to start in July 2020. A corrections officer was arrested after he admitted to engaging in oral sex with a prisoner in a dormitory maintenance room at Lowell. The prisoner alleged that she and the officer also had sexual intercourse. The officer was charged with 1 count of sexual misconduct. This officer was credibly accused of sexual abuse previously, but had remained employed at Lowell and in close contact with prisoners. When they say credibly accused, I believe that means that it was verified, but they took no action with it whatsoever. In February 2017, this officer allegedly handcuffed a prisoner, groped her vagina and breasts, placed her in confinement, and withheld hygiene products from her after she refused to go to the usual place to perform oral sex on the officer, as she had on multiple previous occasions over the previous 2.5 months. The prisoner also alleged that he had provided her with contraband, including nail polish, lip gloss, and small pinches of snuff in exchange for oral sex. A medical exam noted that the prisoner had 2 lesions on her throat, 2 cuts, which she said resulted from performing oral sex on the officer. OIG opened an investigation into these allegations, but did not interview the officer and never completed the investigation. The officer remained employed at Lowell until he was arrested based on new allegations 3 years later. This is after they have done an investigation where if you are in the outside world, if you have lesions on your throat and you can pinpoint the person, this is who did it, they usually suffer some consequences. Don't get me wrong, sometimes they get off the hook, but this happens all the time with officers. And I've seen it personally where I've had hygiene products withheld from me. I have heard about inmates going through the groping, and especially in confinement, just being treated poorly, unusually breaking the 8th Amendment. And yes, people do have their own thing where they do exchange. Yes, she had nail polish and lip gloss and small pinches of snuff, but it is her right to say no when she wants to say no as well. And the fact that the officer who already took her, a person who does not have ability to consent, and handcuffed her after she said no, and then they still let him stay on until 3 years later after new allegations. They just let it become a habit and then just let him go in the place where you're supposed to be punishing people. How do we expect people to come out of prisons in general any better, any type of being able to function in society, if they're over punished while they're in prison? If they've been sentenced and they're in here getting raped and they're over here saying no and they can't, they're trying to build themselves and make themselves better. And it's a world of their own. People have 50 years in there. Sometimes they do want snuff. I do understand how people can come institutionalized, and it doesn't give the officer the right to take advantage of that. I'm not going to elaborate on everyone like that. So in September 2019, a trainee corrections officer was sentenced to 2 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to sexual misconduct with a prisoner under felony Florida law. A felony under Florida law. The prisoner alleged that on 2 separate occasions in September 2018, the officer who was assigned to her housing unit woke her up in the middle of the night, along with prisoners who were being escorted to the pill line outside of dormitory. The pill line is where you go to take your medication. You go outside of the dorm, and you're usually waiting for like half hour to an hour, either before or after chow, and you're waiting to get your medication, and it just comes in this like little pack of 30. They watch you, make sure you take it, and then you go back to the dorm. So the officer then walked her to a bathroom where she had sexual intercourse with him in exchange for Suboxone, a prescription drug used to treat opioid withdrawal. The officer was dismissed for cause in September 2018. I've seen inmates, I've seen them high on Suboxone and not being able to straighten hair and cosmetology. and just nodding out at the table. And it's sad that people that are in the corrections industry, some take advantage of their position and they don't try to help people. They do try to take advantage not only with their power, but with the things that they have in order to abuse other people and continue their addiction in a chance where they have to be sober. So in February 2020, a former Lowell officer trainee turned himself into the Marion County Sheriff's Office on charges of 2 counts of sexual misconduct with a prisoner. Forensic evidence from the prisoner identified the officer's DNA on the prisoner's shirt, which she reported was caused when he ejaculated on her during one of their sexual encounters. The prisoner reported that the officer demanded that she perform oral sex on him on 2 occasions in August 2018, and that she complied because she was panicked and scared. According to an anonymous grievance, this prisoner also was helping the officer distribute contraband around the prison, and another prisoner allegedly also helped him distribute contraband around the same time. She feared she was pregnant by this officer. So while they were running a whole drug triangle, a whole operation, he's out here having unprotected sex with her. She's fearing she's pregnant. So September 2018, the officer was dismissed after contraband was found in his vehicle, and he admitted to attempting to introduce contraband into the prison. OIG's investigation into allegations that this officer repeatedly coerced a prisoner to perform oral sex on him remained open for almost a year and a half following his dismissal. It was eventually closed in February 2020 due to the officer's arrest. So that started in September 2018, August and September, and it had been going on before that. 2020 is when they finally finished that. A Lowell lieutenant was accused repeatedly of sexually abusing multiple prisoners at Lowell over several years, but remained in his position until 2019 when he was arrested for sexually molesting 2 minor girls in the community. FGOC did not respond adequately to previous allegations against this lieutenant, resulting in his remaining in close contact with and being able to harm prisoners for several years. In 2019, another prisoner alleged that between March and April 2018, she had sexual intercourse with this lieutenant twice in a Lowell Annex dormitory in exchange for favors from him. Favors. This prisoner was transferred to another institution for her own safety. In 2018, another prisoner filed a third-party grievance accusing this lieutenant of receiving oral sex from another prisoner, and after the report was made, calling the prisoner who made the report a PREA bitch, which is what I was referring to before. People using that, and inmates against inmates, officers against inmates. Prison Rape Elimination Act. He filed a report, and he called her a PREA bitch, and told her to suck a dick. In 2017, the same lieutenant was accused of sexually attacking another prisoner who alleged he groped her buttocks and made comments that her butt is soft. This prisoner was transferred, but the lieutenant remained on duty supervising prisoners at Lowell. At least 2 of these cases remained open as of November 2019, with no investigative findings on record. In addition to being a repeat sexual predator, this lieutenant was also credibly accused of unjustified force against a Lowell prisoner. In August 2019, he was accused of brutally beating a handcuffed Lowell prisoner and leaving her quadriplegic. In August 2020, FDOC settled the lawsuit related to the prisoner's paralysis for $4.65 million. As part of that case, a former prisoner who recently had been released from Lowell testified under oath that this lieutenant threatened to put you under investigation and take your game time if you did not take care of him, which the prisoner understood to mean oral or regular sex. This prisoner testified that some of the girls were so desperate not to lose their game time that they would have sexual intercourse with this lieutenant. Game time meaning resulting in an early release date based on good behavior while in prison. Actually, I know this officer, this lieutenant. This is Lieutenant Turner. I remember reading about this as well. So, it says Florida Corrections Officer linked to inmates' brutal beating, now accused of child molestation. Yes, that is him. And he is 34, lieutenant at Lowell. He abused a girl starting when she was 6, according to the Miami Herald, to when he was 16. And he turned himself in, according to this one report. Oh no, he didn't turn himself in at all. So Mr. Turner just remained in his position after this, and also when he left this inmate paralyzed, and This is Cheryl Weimar, the one who they left quadriplegic after beating her so severely. She looked so beautiful. I don't think I met her in prison. I may have seen her around, but everything that I've read from Change Comes Now from Ms. Deborah has been that she is such a wonderful, sweet, kind lady. And regardless of what type of person you are, you don't deserve to be left quadriplegic while you are currently suffering in a sentence already. So we're going to continue this. If you guys would like a separate video on that, let me know, because I would love to get all of the evidence that I can on that and just show it all to you guys. I know they've been recently doing his trial because it's been 3 years and nobody's been charged yet. So in February 2017, a Lowell Corrections Sergeant was arrested and charged with sexual misconduct involving a prisoner and terminated from employment. After another officer witnessed the sergeant kissing a prisoner in July 2016, the prisoner told investigators that she had sexual intercourse with the sergeant on multiple occasions, and forensic testing ultimately revealed the sergeant's DNA on the prisoner's pants. Another officer investigated the scene and found a letter between the prisoner and staff confirming an inappropriate relationship. Despite the strong forensic and circumstantial evidence of sexual abuse, the charge was subsequently dropped because the victim's refusal to cooperate precluded the state from proving sexual penetration as the charging statute requires. So it was dropped because she didn't want to carry on with the investigation. So, however, the sergeant's termination stood for violating the FDOC moral character standards. Wow, that's a shock. A Foodservice coordinator at Lowell Institution was arrested on September 18, 2019 on suspicion of sexual battery on a prisoner and charged with 1 count of battery. Although the charge was subsequently dropped, this alleged battery was corroborated by surveillance video, which showed the staff member waited till no one was in the immediate area, then rubs or grabs the prisoner's buttocks while she is cleaning. The complaining witness was cleaning the kitchen's area of the prison in the middle of the day when the Foodservice coordinator grabbed the prisoner's buttocks, which investigators subsequently confirmed in reviewing video evidence. At the time of the staff member's arrest, it was reported that DOC officials were in the process of terminating him. Earlier in 2018, a prisoner alleged that another prisoner had engaged in oral sex with his staff member, but OIG closed that case as unfounded without interviewing the staff member. Many more officers at Lowell have been investigated for credible accusations of sexual abuse, including forcible rape, sexual acts in exchange for contraband, and other forms of coerced sexual activity. For example, in March 2018, a Lowell sergeant allegedly anally raped a female prisoner in a storage area at Lowell. She alleged that the sergeant forcefully turned her around, pulled her pants down, and forced his penis into her anally, and then he wiped himself on her thermals. The thermals are white undergarments that we wear when it gets cold underneath our uniform. I'll try to get a picture of them. They're just the same as thermals that people wear up north, except a lot thinner. Extensive evidence, including photographs showing anal trauma, documents the victim's injuries. A forensic examination of the victim after the assault found that she was suffering back pain and rectal pain and had loose stool and loss of bowel control. An OIG inspector who worked on the case told the department that Lowell staff mishandled the alleged victim's clothing in the immediate aftermath of her report, so no DNA evidence was collected for subsequent forensic lab testing. I wonder why that was. Something tells me that was on purpose. And that's just my personal opinion. Shortly after the alleged rape, the sergeant went on leave. He subsequently resigned from his position with FDOC. As of September 2020, 2.5 years after the alleged incident, OIG's investigation remained open. One corrections sergeant resigned in 2019 after having been accused of sexual misconduct, violence, and threats against prisoners since 2013, including in at least 10 documented complaints. In March 2017, Lowell's warden at the time wrote in an email that the sergeant should be removed from the female prisoner population because he has had multiple allegations of misconduct, with several being sexual in nature. Getting a lot of pops up. There have been 10 assigned as IG investigations, with 6 remaining under open investigation and 4 not sustained thus far. While I hesitate to condemn staff solely based on allegations made by inmates and no substantiated cases, the number and trend is certainly concerning. I'm very happy that he said that, at least mentioned that it is concerning, because there is a lot of people who will just get mad and hide, and not hide. There will just people that get mad and use allegations, grievances against people and against officers as well. But him saying that there's so many of them means that there's some credibility to it. The complaints against the sergeant included an allegation that he threatened a prisoner with bodily harm and slammed her head into a wall, that he sexually abused prisoners, including touching a prisoner's buttocks, and that he had repeatedly propositioned prisoners for sex and sexually harassed prisoners, that he was having sex with a prisoner who was selling cigarettes for him, and that he exchanged cigarettes, pills, and other contraband for sex with prisoners. Several of the specific allegations against the sergeant were disturbing. In early 2017, a prisoner in the Lowell Annex made repeated allegations that the same sergeant had repeatedly prepositioned her for sex, alleging that he had asked her on numerous occasions, "When am I going to let him fuck me?" She alleged that she was in fear of the sergeant and a female officer with whom he was also allegedly involved, and she described specific incidents and alleged that he offered her cigarettes in exchange for exposing her naked body. In another 2017 case, a prisoner's aunt contacted Lowell and reported that her niece regularly was having sex with the sergeant and selling cigarettes to other prisoners for him. In March 2017, due to this pattern of sexual misconduct allegations, including 6 cases that remained open at the time, the warden requested that the sergeant be placed on no contact status or transferred to another facility. He was listed on the no inmate contact list from March 2017 until he resigned 3 years later and briefly was reassigned to a nearby men's facility. However, he remained employed as sergeant at FDOC, moving between the annex, the main unit, and other facilities until he resigned in March 2019. All OIG cases against this former officer have been closed or suspended with no sustained violations. Seems like as long as you resign, or as long as you back off, then they don't really tend to try to go after you. In April 2018, a Lowell corrections officer allegedly raped a prisoner in the outdoor space between 2 buildings. According to the prisoner's written allegation, while she was working in a dormitory on April 2018, the officer took her to a side of the building between the dorm and the canteen, pushed her down, and told her he knew what kind of girl she was, and forced his penis into her mouth. I did what he told me, and I gave him oral, and he zipped his pants up and took me back to the dorm. The prisoner repeatedly maintained the details of her allegation. In December 2018, she reported that she had been harassed by several officers for reporting the abuse. OIG ultimately closed the investigation as founded. And that's the thing that you do see common as well. If you do try to put a grievance on someone, whether it's sexual in nature or not, you'll see officers, their friends on other shifts, not letting you get basic things, not bringing you out for canteen, doing just punishing you extracurricularly in ways that you can't get to the basic rights that other inmates have. And that area at Lowell, if he is in the... So I'm assuming he's in the main unit, and there's 2 canteens there. There is one that is when you leave the annex over in between Victor Dorm, where I was at, and there's now a garden there, and there's the field. It's Victor Dorm, garden, field, and the field is super, super long. And there's a little edge over the field that you can lay down there and nobody can see you if you're on the other side, but the people from the annex can see you. And so it either happened over there or the other side, which was by past the chow hall over by property, is where you'll be able, that's where the other canteen section is. And there's a lot of corners there. It's also very old. It's very possible that could be where that happened as well. So between 2015 and 2019, one corrections sergeant was the subject of at least 6 investigations into allegations of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and inappropriate interactions with prisoners, one of which was partially sustained in an OIG investigation. The sergeant repeatedly was placed on the no inmate contact list due to these allegations and was transferred between Lowell assignments and directly supervising prisoners at Lowell. During on-site interviews with the department, multiple prisoners accused the sergeant of threatening them with confinement or discipline if they spoke frankly with the department. Administrators placed the sergeant on no inmate contact status and planned to transfer him, and Lowell's warden informed the sergeant in April 2019 that permanently reassigning him to the other facility was in the best interest of Lowell Correctional Institution. That same month, the sergeant voluntarily resigned from the FDOC. Prior to his voluntary resignation, the sergeant, an admitted sexual harasser who was repeatedly accused of sexual abuse over several years, continued working within FDOC. By failing to implement meaningful corrective actions, FDOC and Lowell officials allowed the sergeant to directly supervise prisoners on and off for several years. So who knows what he did in that period of time. The department also reviewed Lowell staff discipline records, which demonstrate a persistent pattern of sexual misconduct. For example, Lowell staff discipline logs for April and May 2017 indicate that at least 18 officers and other staff faced discipline for PREA-related violations over those 2 months as follows. PREA meaning Prison Rape Elimination Act. 1 for arrest, sexual relationship with an inmate. 10 for inappropriate relationship. 1 for conduct unbecoming, sexually assaulted another person. 1 for conduct unbecoming, seen inappropriately touching herself in Foodservice area. 2 for conduct unbecoming. 1 for inmate abuse, vulgar language against inmates. 1? Oh my God, they used to call us shitbags all the times. Jesus. I have heard the bottom of the barrel yelled to children, to adults, to old people. 1? This is crazy. It shows how much they just sweep under the rug. Okay, sorry. 1 for failure to follow reporting procedures after inmate reporting being raped. I'm sure there's several of that. And 1 for failure to report violation, for failure to report an inappropriate relationship between another officer and a prisoner. Lowell's no inmate contact lists also demonstrate a pattern of sexual predation among staff. Between November 2017 and March 2019, at least a dozen officers and other staff were removed from prisoner contact positions based on credibly alleged or confirmed misconduct, apparently of a sexual nature, as follows. 1 for allegations of prisoner assault. 4 for allegations of misconduct, inappropriate conduct, or inappropriate conduct with prisoners. 5 for inappropriate relationship or allegations of inappropriate with relationship. 1 for multiple cases, both closed and open, of alleged misconduct. 1 for inmate abuse. Some of these individuals were arrested, terminated, or resigned while under investigation, while others remained employed at Lowell or other FDOC facilities. So I'm going to stop there, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the inadequate systems that they have, detecting, responding to the sexual abuse, place Lowell prisoners at substantial risk of serious harm from staff sexual abuse. I'm sorry that you guys had to hear all of this graphic allegations and credible instances and how vulgar these people are, but I hope that it brought to light some of the abuse that I've personally seen people go through, and that is currently happening as recently as 2019, and I know it is currently happening right now. And I would love to know what you guys have to say about it. Any comments? If you've been in prison, let me know if you've had any experience with this, or if you're fighting for a loved one in there, let us know. If we could help in Formidable Felons, I will put a shout out on my Facebook page. And in Change Comes Now, I will try to reach out to them as well. Shout out to them and Deborah over there. If there's anything that I could do to shed light on this information, I'm going to do it. So, again, I'm sorry that it had to be so graphic, but this is what happens day to day for someone who is punished already. Someone who is serving their time for what crimes they have committed, and they still have to worry about not having self-autonomy and having that taken away from them at any moment and not being able to do anything about it. So that is why I'm making this, and I would love to know what you guys have to think. Please let me know below in the comments, like and subscribe. Again, I'm Alex from Formidable Felons, so I will see you next week again. Shalom.